Hello again, fellow podcaster, and welcome back to Pod Theory. I'm your host, Jason Cercone, and today we're going to take a look at why every podcast you publish needs a call to action. A podcast without a call to action is a missed opportunity, period. Why? Because you're speaking to captivated listeners, and if they find your podcast content beneficial, they're going to listen to what you want them to do next, because in pretty much every instance, where you point them next is going to be useful to them as well. So what is a CTA, or a call to action if you're not into the whole brevity thing? A call to action is a phrase that tells your listener exactly what action to take next and tells them how to do it. A CTA could simply be two words like learn more. With podcasting, you'll want to get a little bit more detailed with your wording, but an example of a call to action would be something like this. Please take a minute to review this show on Apple Podcasts. Head over to your Apple Podcasts app, find this show, scroll to the bottom where you see the ratings and reviews, and click Write a Review. In written context like a blog or a social media post, a call to action often contains a hyperlink or a clickable button that takes readers to the next step. With podcasting being mostly audio, it's up to you to steer your listener in the right direction. In addition to verbalizing your CTA, you can also include a clickable link in the show notes, and you can point your listeners towards that link so they can head where you want them to go more easily. CTAs have become a staple in podcast advertising. Obviously, advertisers want a return on their ad buy, and giving listeners a clear call to action on how they can take advantage of the offer being presented will increase the likelihood of that return. So just like ads, you can use a strong call to action to get people to invest in you and your brand even further. According to WordStream, 75% of podcast listeners follow specific calls to action that they hear on a podcast. This is incredibly powerful and something no podcaster should overlook. To create your call to action, determine what you want your listeners to do after they finish listening to your show. This could be any number of items, and there's no wrong answer here. It boils down to what you feel is most important to your continued growth and what will further your connection with your listener. But your call to action can do any of the following. It can encourage your listener to leave a review on Apple Podcasts, like I explained a few minutes ago. You can ask your listener to connect with you on social media. You can have them sign up for exclusive content through your email newsletter. You can encourage them to go back in the archives and listen to another one of your episodes. You could point them towards more resources on your website. You can connect them to a giveaway on your website. You could help them discover a course or a webinar that you built that they can purchase. You can ask them to support your podcast on Patreon. You could ask them to share your episode with a friend or a colleague. Here's one that I've added recently that I really like. You can encourage your listeners to call you and discuss your podcast one-on-one. Again, as long as your podcast contains a CTA, you instantly improve your chances of reaching your listener in capacities outside your podcast. This, of course, enhances your brand connection and increases sales opportunities. One small tip to keep in mind, try to keep your CTAs limited to 1 or 2 per show. If you overload your audience with multiple calls to action, they won't know which one to follow, and that typically results in them following none of them. A call to action is a component of your podcast you want to have in place starting right now. You want to maximize your time with each and every listener your podcast receives and connect with them in your favorite spaces outside of your podcast. Helping them get there is the first step in this oh so important equation. And with that, we're done for today. As I've mentioned, a call to action I've really been enjoying is giving out my phone number so you can contact me directly to talk about the show. Please give me a call at 412-965-8428 and let me know your thoughts on Pod Theory. Good talk. I'll see you back here tomorrow. This has been Jason Cercone on Pod Theory.